Hello, Patreon. Thank you for being here. I failed to consider that this is the week of 4th of July, so if you hear gunshots in the background, those are actually fireworks. I want to begin this month by talking about what it is I'm really trying to do with this entire podcast. As the finish line is in sight for the research phase of season 2, this will be good for me to serve as a reminder of why I'm writing before I begin work on what I'm writing. But I also get the impression that a lot of people are not clear about what I'm doing or why. I haven't read a single negative article about the show, so I'm really not even trying to complain. But I have noticed that some of the articles put a lot of weight on the scandalous aspects of the show, as if the reason I'm here is to tell all the gossip I've ever heard and expose the worst rumors about everyone involved in country music. That's the exact opposite of my goal, and I know that nearly everyone watching this has listened close enough to the show and the liner notes to know that, or I don't know why you would support me if you thought that's what I was doing. So I know this isn't something I'll need to keep coming back to and repeating for those of you here. However, I do see some of the podcasts and TV shows that some huge fans of Cocaine and Rhinestones refer to as being similar, so it is clear that I do need to spend some time on this. And this isn't going to be about running anyone else down right now, so I'm going to try to focus on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It's so simple, and I think that's why some people have a hard time getting it. All I'm doing is telling the truth. That's it. But I think the truth has gone untold for so long that when someone finally gets around to doing it, it seems like this huge sensationalized thing. I have a certain approach to storytelling, and maybe that's different from what everyone is used to. Maybe that's a little complicated, but underneath all of that is nothing more than the truth. It's just history. And as you've heard me say, sometimes history is uncomfortable. Sometimes history is terrifying. But that's not me digging around in trash cans to see what the neighbors threw out. That's just life. And many projects that claim to be about the history of country music try to sweep that life under the rug. And I think that's bullshit. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the approach where they focus on nothing but the bad behavior and, oh, look how fucked up all these backwards country folk are. That's bullshit too. There's a lot more I could talk about regarding how country music gets treated by the media here, but those two perspectives are enough for today. You've got the country music so pure crowd over here, and you've got the country music so crazy crowd over there. I'm not in either one of those crowds. I'm in the country music crowd. What I'm talking to you about in every episode is the universe where I've existed since before the day I was born. Country music might as well be my family tree. These are my people. If I was here to exploit my people and do nothing but air out dirty laundry, there wouldn't be an episode about one of the least scandalous guys in country music history, Tom T. Hall. There wouldn't be an episode dedicated almost entirely to the musical influence of Ralph Mooney. There wouldn't be episodes about how Loretta Lynn and Merle Haggard are a lot smarter than people want to give them credit for. And if I was here to lie to you about my people, then I'd tell you Spade Cooley got a little more fucked up than he meant to one night and accidentally killed his wife. I'd focus on how much Ira and Charlie Louvin fought with each other, and you'd never hear me say the words blood harmony. Unless I was putting the accent on blood. But you hear me talk a lot about objectivity and how important it is to me. The reason I have to focus on trying to be objective is because of how close I am to this material. I'll give you an example. This is a wallet that George Jones gave to me when I was a kid. He recorded duets with my father. He did a lot for my family. I have nothing but fond memories of George Jones. Anyone who thinks I'm here to pull skeletons out of his closet, that's not what this is about. But it's also not about me sitting down and saying, George Jones was a saint because I knew him and I never saw him do anything bad. That's obviously not true either. This is about documenting history. History matters, and the current popular understanding of the history of country music is totally fucked. George Jones is the perfect example of that. This man was an alcoholic and he was a drug addict. That's the truth, and I intend to talk about that. But the fact that George Jones was an alcoholic and a drug addict, that's nowhere near the most important or even the most interesting thing about him. I'm going to tell George Jones' story as close to the bone as I can get, and I'm going to do it without saying the words riding lawnmower one time. So if the drugs and alcohol and bloodshed get people to start paying attention, that's fine. That's part of it, or I wouldn't talk about it, just like the Country Music So Pure crowd doesn't talk about it. It is part of the reality, but it's only part of the reality, and it's not nearly as big a part of it as the Country Music So Crazy crowd would have you believe. But what I'm here to do is tell you my stories about my people because I've seen them told wrong my whole life. It still happens, I see it all the time, and I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with someone who thinks Hank Williams Sr. invented country music trying to meet a deadline by lunch. That's called bad journalism. I'm not okay with people who write about country musicians without trying to fact check any of the things they say, because why let the truth get in the way of a good story? That's called exploitation. I'm also not okay with people who tell stories without giving their sources, because that's called plagiarism. And I said this isn't about running anyone down, but one person I've already publicly called out is Malcolm Gladwell. He's guilty of some of what I just talked about. I still get so many messages every week from people wanting to know how I could possibly criticize Malcolm Gladwell's little vacation into country music coverage. I get so many of these messages that I wrote a very long response so I could just copy and paste it to anyone who asks, and hopefully it would answer all their questions. Last week, I decided to just go ahead and make that response public. I used the website Medium. I just pasted my response on there to make it easier for the truth to be out there. You know, someone shouldn't have to email me to get the truth. So it's just on that website. I'll have a link to that in this post for anyone who wants to read more about what bad and exploitative journalism looks like and how that's very much not what I'm here to do. And here's one reason why it's important to make clear what my motives are, because here's something that's so totally awesome. I stopped paying attention to the stats a while back, but at some point in the past couple of months, Cocaine and Rhinestones crossed the 1 million plays mark. That means there have been over 1 million instances of someone hitting play on an episode of Cocaine and Rhinestones. If you stop and think about that for a minute, it's pretty intense. I mean, at least for me. It's great, of course, it's great. I love knowing that so many people are responding to a show about country music. It also gives me a lot of awareness about how much this matters. We have a real opportunity here to try and undo a lot of the damage that's been done over the years. This seems to be working. It seems to be going well. The Guardian just published a list of their 50 favorite podcasts, and Cocaine and Rhinestones is on there. So people are paying attention, and we got to get this right. All right. Last month, I said I could talk about the poll episode, so let's talk about that. If you somehow missed it, everyone contributing $5 or more per month will be eligible to vote in a poll to determine the subject of an episode in Season 2. I'm not ready to run the poll yet, but I can talk about why so much thought has to go into it. First of all, it's the nature of the game that some country music names are more famous than others. You know, George Jones is more famous than Mel Street. That's just the way it is. That's a topic for another day, but it's only natural that the more famous a person is, the more likely it is they're going to come out on top in any poll. So if possible, I'd like to throw a wrench in that. I'm actually planning on running at least 2 polls and maybe 3 just to get to the topic of this one episode. I can tell you right now what the choices in the first poll are going to be, so you can start thinking about it if you want. The poll episode is going to be focused mostly in Nashville, mostly in the 1970s. So your choices are going to be between an episode on a member of the Nashville A-team of session musicians, or an episode on one of the major songwriters in that time and place. And when I say those are going to be the poll options, I mean they'll be presented exactly that way in the first poll. Nobody's name's going to be in there at all. It's a choice between an episode about a hit songwriter or a hit making session musician. You will be making your decision based on that information alone. And by doing it this way, I hope to get people to vote based more on what they want to hear a story about, more so than who they want to hear a story about. And after getting to the what, then we'll start figuring out the who, of course. And there may be some more complicated problems that come up with this, but I believe I already have complicated solutions figured out. I don't need to get into all that here because, like I said, complicated. Okay, one last thing. I've had a ton of people hitting me up recently to ask if I'm ever going to make those music playlists that I teased a month or two ago with Pandora, I think. Some people want to know about Spotify playlists too. Yes, 100% yes. There is so much cool stuff being planned around this podcast. I'd be here for another hour if I got into it all. It's 4th of July week. I got to get out of here. As far as playlists go, that might seem like something I could throw together real fast and just have it out there, but it's obviously not how I like to do things. So let's just say I'll try to make it worth the wait. And that's it. All right. I hope everyone's having a good summer. Oh, shit. One more thing. There's this book I wanted to mention. Country Music Stars and the Supernatural by Cliff Lenedecker. Don't know if I'm saying that right. Jocelyn Romo showed me this book. I hope I'm saying her name right. You may know her as The Roamer on Instagram, and I believe she works for the Grand Ole Echo in Los Angeles. Anyway, she let me know this book exists, and of course, I bought it immediately. And here's the thing though, the cheapest copy I could find was $30. So this is apparently already a rare book. I'm not sure when I will use it as a source, but I know that I will at some point. So I want to let everyone know about this book before I mention it on the podcast, and who knows how many thousands of people hear it and go try to buy it, because I have a feeling it will be very difficult to find for a reasonable price after that happens. All right. That really is it this time. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it so much. And I'll be back next month to hopefully have some more interesting things to talk about. Thank you.